Risky is how I would describe Michigan. Um, they're saying prove it yet again with the notice of allegations coming from the NCAA. The punishment last year, of course, in regards to Connor Stallions and the sign stealing scandal, which we'll dive more into with David Cohn to get his reaction to this. Now Sharon Moore's involved because he's apparently deleted 52 text messages to Connor Stallions whenever he learned that Stallions was named in this the report that they were going out and advanced scouting, stealing signs from opponent sidelines. Chad, Michigan is doing exactly what they did last year. They're saying, okay, go ahead, prove it. We've served our punishment. We self-imposed things at the beginning of the year on something separate and apart from what we're discussing now. The Big Ten stepped in with Tony Petitti and had us sit for 3 games. We went on to win the national title in the college football playoff. We were eligible. The president of the NCAA said we won fair and square. What do you want us to do about it? The head coach has gone to the NFL. We elevated the coordinator who was here, but again, we've served our punishment. The investigation took place over a long period of time. Their bylaws state that Michigan will have 3 months, I believe, to appeal. There's a huge process involved in all of this. It's not like the NCAA was going to be able to step in last year and do much about it anyway. But they did drag their feet to the point where I'm skeptical that they even did as much as they should have throughout this investigation. For instance, Chad, you have long said this has got to go deeper than just the Big Ten or some big opponents. What were they doing on the road? How spread out was this? Were they advanced scouting potential opponents for the college football playoff at the time? Bowl opponents, whatever it might be. Well, we know of the storyline from here in Nashville where someone, a friend of a friend, on a message board, who sounded crazy at the time, but reading back to it, it sounds very plausible. Hey, I was going to go and, with my cell phone, get some signs from the stands. I was supposed to send it back to someone. It wasn't Harbaugh. Apparently, he didn't know anything about it. That's what's a part of this post, too. Vandy was going to host Tennessee that weekend, but it was called off because Tennessee lost to South Carolina the week prior. They weren't going to make the college football playoff. Who did? TCU. And TCU ended up beating Michigan in the college football playoff December 31st, New Year's Eve of 2021-22. Chad, we had Sonny Dykes, head coach of TCU, on. He was in his first year whenever they matched up against Michigan. And yesterday we asked, hey, we've learned about this notice of allegations to Sharon Moore, the new head coach at Michigan. Did NCAA investigators reach out to you because you faced Michigan in the alleged season where Connor Stallions was gaining an advantage in order to help out Michigan with play calls and signals during games? But did the NCAA reach out to you or TCU about that and how you handled that preparation against what was going on there at the time?
No, not that I'm aware of. They certainly haven't reached out to me, and I'm not aware if they've reached out to anybody else on our staff. But I think that it sounds to me like they've done a pretty thorough investigation of everything, and it sounds to me like they've have come to some conclusions and are getting ready to share them with us all. And it was definitely an interesting, definitely an interesting time. We were preparing for Michigan. We had a long time to prepare for them, and as we got started, you know how it is. You call people that at some of the schools that they played, and everybody kind of kept saying, "Hey, watch the signals and be careful with this." And you hear that from people, and often you hear that from people that lost a game as kind of an excuse. And I think we treated it that way at first a little bit, and then I think as we started to hear it more and more and started to dive into it a little bit, it seemed pretty obvious maybe that something was going on, but we had no idea what or to what extent. I think stealing signals is pretty common in college football, but I think that Michigan took it to a different level is what it sounds like to me, and certainly what we heard. And so we made a couple of changes. Wasn't anything earth shattering. Made some changes to to kind of protect our offense and defense, from them, and as we played in that semifinal game. And I think it certainly helped us. And I don't know that we would have been able to win that game had we not gotten some of that information.
So, I mean, and it can be as simple as just having a dummy call or a dummy sign. And was there a play that comes to mind where you knew you got them on a sign that they thought a play was coming, but it really wasn't that play?
Oh, I can't think of anything specific, but there was some times where we got into a formation and we checked, did a check with me on the sideline and signaled in a dummy call, and they signaled in a call, and we didn't change the call to the signal, and I think that there was the assumption maybe that it had been, or it certainly looked that way.
Right.
Uh, it's speculation on my part, but one or two, I think, plays in the ball game probably resulted from that. Again, it's hard to say that for sure, but I think we can speculate that way.
And one or two plays is about one or two of the 5 or 6 that determine a football game.
Yeah, well, very very smart by you and your coaching staff. I am curious though, if, and we don't know this, and we haven't read the notice of allegation, but we're seeing some reports coming out of it. If it comes out that, and you mentioned this was a little bit above and beyond as opposed to what you see with normal sign stealing in college football, if in some way it's released that other programs believe they were affected, teams that Michigan was not even playing, but were going to be affected positively by if they lost in the playoff race, how much worse do you think that is from a coaching standpoint?
Oh, I think it's like anything. I mean, look, we have so much on our plates right now that we have to kind of move on. I think we all know that things happen sometimes in college football that maybe we're not comfortable with, and you hope at some point that that it's taken seriously and investigated, and you hope at some point that if they decide to punish a school, and I'm not talking about Michigan specifically, any school really for that matter, that it has teeth, just to encourage people to not do it. And I think that's been probably part of our biggest issue in college football, has been when we found programs guilty of violations, that there really hasn't been anything that's encouraged them significantly enough not to do those violations or commit those violations again. And so you just hope that at some point, whether, like I said, it's Michigan or whomever, that finds some wrongdoing within the program, that there's something with teeth to encourage programs to do things the right way.
Chad, there's Sonny Dykes from yesterday. Full interview up at outkick.com/show. Just go to the hot mic page there. If you want to know about the scope of what has gone on there with Connor Stallions, you look at more than just deleted text messages. You look at the games where it was actually an advantage for the opponent. The one game where we can point to. And that was TCU against Michigan in a wild game, by the way, 51-45. Second half, there were 62 points combined in this game. But the first touchdown was scored on a pick six. J.J. McCarthy threw a pick six, 41-yard interception return. And I mentioned to Sonny Dykes in there, one or two plays of the 5 or 6 that determined the game. J.J. McCarthy threw 2 pick sixes in this game. And one in the first half, one in the second half. Sonny Dykes mentions there's one or two that you could point to maybe. I mean, they jumped routes. They knew what Michigan wanted to do based on possibly a dummy call coming from this. And guess what we've seen? Connor Stallions standing next to Sharon Moore, not necessarily in that game, but we've seen it in the past. There were co-offensive coordinators that year. Matt Weiss was the co-offensive coordinator as well as Sharon Moore. He's no longer with the program. He's under the FBI investigation for computer-related crimes, access crimes. I'll say, this is bizarre to me and downright just stupid of the NCAA to not pick up the phone or fly to Texas and talk to TCU with a coach that admits, at first, it sounds like sour grapes from teams that lost. They probably didn't have the signs. They just got their ass kicked. And then they changed some things and decided we're going to signal some things in, but we're really going to stick with the play or the coverage. And it worked. They led 14-0. They led 21-6. Then they led 34-16 late in the third quarter. That, to me, is enough to say, hey, Take us through what you knew, what you found, and why you decided to trust all of the suggestions coming from other coaches. And the fact that they didn't do that tells me that they're really not that serious about really doing anything here. Meanwhile, Michigan's going to say, prove it. Then there are programs, Chad, like Kentucky, that will just agree to certain sanctions and penalties, vacating 10 games off of the 2021 season, going on probation for 2 years. And this is over players that were working for UK Healthcare, but actually didn't go to work but still got paid. And then the players that received those benefits, 11 players were paid for not working at UK Healthcare, 8 played. Basically, players were apparently told by someone at UK Healthcare they did not have to work to get paid, and they gladly took the money and then didn't do the work. Well, in this NCAA penalty phase of this, they acknowledge, they agree, quote, no member of the athletic department knew or should have reasonably known about the no-show jobs. But yet Kentucky's taking 10 vacated wins. They're vacating 10 wins, and they're going on probation for 2 seasons. This was the year with Will Levis and Chris Rodriguez. They had a great year. I mean, a great season for Kentucky. We saw Stoops get a big contract extension at Kentucky after this year. All of that happened. But yet Kentucky's going to accept this, and Michigan's going to say, well, no, we've already accepted what Tony Petitti stepped up and did, and we have already won the championship, which you accept that we are the face of college football currently. We hoisted the trophy. We're the defending national champions now. It's interesting to me that the ones that say prove it end up having a ton of success anyway, and the ones that comply are middle-of-the-pack programs that stay there because they're then under probation for years to come. It's weird how this all works. Some programs do it, some don't. And the NCAA, well, they don't do a thorough investigation. They don't even call the teams that received word and then benefited from actually tricking Connor Stallions and having Connor Stallions take the bait and tell his coordinators one thing when that one thing wasn't actually going to be what the opponent was actually trying to do, although they've done it on film all year.
It's got me legitimately curious if this Netflix documentary actually brings forth more information than this really way too long investigation by the NCAA. Because if they didn't even call TCU, what are we really going to learn about the whole sign stealing deal that we didn't already know? I mean, we know what was going on based on media reports and based on seeing Connor Stallions on the sideline at Central Michigan and Michigan State and seeing what he was up to. So we know a lot. I think there's a lot more still to uncover. And because Michigan's not going to have final edit of this thing, this isn't like Hard Knocks with an NFL team where they can take out and edit whatever they want you to see, the public. I believe the editing will be self-editing by Connor Stallions, who does not want to wreck the Michigan football program by admitting to too much. But Connor Stallions will be on camera talking about his part in this whole scandal. Does he say something that leads a reporter down a rabbit hole to find other information out about what he was up to? Does he just completely come clean and say a lot of things that he was doing that we don't even know about yet? One thing's for sure, we're going to end up knowing more about this Michigan Connor Stallions scandal probably from the Netflix documentary, which surprises me to say because I thought it was going to be a big nothing burger when it was first released. But we're going to find out more from this than we did the NCAA investigation because they didn't even call TCU in the investigation. So I'm not overly confident that the NCAA uncovered something we don't already know. But kudos to them once again for uncovering that was Connor Stallions on the sideline when Central Michigan, their own athletic department, could not figure that out. So at least they have it. Every report has acknowledged that the NCAA is acknowledging that was in fact Connor Stallions on the sideline. But yet we still haven't heard from, I'm just call her Miss Amy. Miss Amy, who's the athletic director at Central Michigan. No word from her on their internal investigation.
Chad, we all knew that was Connor Stallions. And it's just, again, they're just now getting around to confirming for us. Oh, yes, that was him in disguise. I don't even want to say disguise. That was him in Central Michigan issued gear. That was sideline gear for assistant
looking
coaches.
Like a coach.
Official visiting officials on the sideline wearing the same gear as coaching staff and support staff. So it's not just a disguise. It's like it is the full gear for coaches that should be down there. And he's down there doing
Connor Stallion stuff.
Yeah, he's not just pumping up the players coming off the sideline. Let's put it that way.
He's not the get back coach. He's not telling them to get back to avoid a penalty on a celebration.
Now, this was a beat down by Michigan State, by the way. So I don't think he was helping them all that much. It's a damning incident, an example, if in fact that's what he was doing, because they got blown out. But there's more to this, and Chad, there's more to it through the texts that were deleted, right?
Oh, of course.
What's the contents of those deleted text messages?
You don't go through and delete 52 text on the day a story drops
it
unless
could
there's
be
something
just
in there that could incriminate you.
You just delete the entire thread with the person. Again.
Of course.
So some of the text could just been like, hey, yeah, let's print this booklet or whatever. The other stuff, there's a reason why you wanted to delete that and not have any affiliation with it.
Well, this has me now knowing after our talk with Coach Sonny Dykes that they didn't talk to TCU. It's got me way more interested in the Netflix documentary than the actual NCAA investigation that took entirely too long to complete. Because there's going to be more information in that, I believe, than this.
Just as a football fan, I want to know, okay, show us the plays that baited them into what you wanted when you knew you had them, right? And he wouldn't tell us exactly when. But as a part of the investigation, he would tell them. He would show them how they were having an advantage against Ohio State or Purdue or Rutgers, whoever. And we did this coverage. We knew they were going to check into this. And, and hypothetically, here's a pick six that we led 7-0. Here's another pick six from J.J. McCarthy, who had a great game, by the way, except for those 2 pick sixes. There were, it's not every single snap.
Do you think that Connor Stalions is still on the payroll by some Michigan alum to keep quiet? Do you think that he's going to be given a job or something is going to be done to make sure he's not disgruntled?
The thing is, Chad,
because he got paid by Netflix. We know that.
Well, he should because, the dude should have his own podcast.
Yeah.
But hear me out. If he's on the payroll, think about how many people have to be on the payroll if he's on the payroll to keep quiet because no one has rolled on them. That is also, it's like a mafia don that everyone refuses to roll on. Jim Harbaugh is asked about it yesterday at Chargers training camp, and he goes, Conor McGregor, once again on the NCAA.
Yeah, I do have a comment on that. Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson. I have raised my family on that lesson. I have preached that lesson to the teams that I've coached. No one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize, and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations. So for me, it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
So I love that answer because, again, prove it. We still sit here and he is still saying in no uncertain term, prove it. I knew nothing. I've said nothing. I apologize for absolutely nothing. Go ahead. Have at it. I'm here and I'm not leaving. He said it at Michigan, and he's saying it right now at the podium.
Harbaugh's one of those guys that's so confident in his answers to everything, you almost can't help but to believe him, even if he's just lying through his teeth. I hear that answer, I'm thinking, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, his parents did tell him never to do those things, so I'm sure he's never done one of those things in his life. Yeah, I believe him.
Now, meanwhile, we have seen Connor Stallions next to the coordinators on that season. Okay. They can't. There's no way you can say the same thing.
No, I mean, I think that there could be a layer of plausible deniability where, he doesn't know.
Demanding deniability.
Yeah, well, just, do I believe that Jim Harbaugh knew he was doing something? Yes. I believe he knew in general something's going on. I also think that Jim Harbaugh is probably smart enough to not get into the weeds with it and really talk to people about it a lot.
Yeah.
They just, hey, my offensive coordinator's doing a hell of a job knowing when the blitz is coming. So I'm going to let him keep doing whatever work he's doing with this other guy over here. My defensive coordinator is doing a great job of knowing when to blitz. Don't know how they're doing it. Sign stealing happens across college football. I'm going to stay out of it and then wash my hands of it if something happens.
And it does. But
no, I think he should have known if he, as he says, that knew nothing about it, not aware of anything.
Wasn't there something from Connor Stallions that said, and this may have been from the message board post of the guy who said he was asked to do or go record with his phone, that it was not to make it back to Harbaugh,
the head coach,
right? The head coach, yes. There's more. I love this story, but I don't love how the NCAA has handled any of this. I mean,
and that's par for the course with
announcing
the NCAA.
things without even. I mean, they're getting help from Ohio State and the Big Ten, but they're not getting help from TCU, who got help from those same programs that told them to beware of this. You have 34 days or whatever to prepare. Dummy some calls and change your signals.
Well, they still haven't given the notice of allegations to Michigan. We just have reports about what's in the notice of allegations. I think they're waiting on the Netflix documentary. I think they're going to wait to see if there's any more details in it that Connor Stallions incriminates himself, and they can add to it.
You know what this is? This is Yahoo.
I really think that's what they're waiting on.
This is Yahoo Sports doing the investigation.
Absolutely. They're not getting this. They don't have subpoena power, and no one at Michigan's going to help them out.
Well, they met with them, did they not, on campus for a day? You know?
Well, I think they got helped out by Michigan.
They know about the
in
deleted
the whole
texts.
COVID-19 stuff, and that's why they self-imposed, because I do think the powers that be at Michigan were willing to help the NCAA on that one. They're not willing to help them on this one.
Yeah, well, they were willing to help right after the NCAA was pissed off because they said it was over a hamburger. Harbaugh's stance. Chad, how about these Olympics? You've been all in. What have you learned from greatness? Because we've seen a lot of greatness over the last week and a half.
Well, and just a thought that I had over the weekend, and it's legitimately a question that I'm going to pose to you, Hutton, because I really don't know exactly where I fall on this. I don't have a strong take or opinion one way or the other. I do have a strong take on Simone Biles legitimately being one of the greatest American athletes of all time. And I'm not trying to say male or female. I think she's one of the greatest American athletes ever. Now, where does she fall on that list? Simone Biles, 27 years old, is the most decorated U.S. gymnast, 11 total medals, 7 gold medals over the course of her Olympic career. That's not counting world championship career, which is even better than that. The most decorated U.S. Olympic gymnast, the most decorated gymnast in the world. She's the GOAT of gymnastics. There's no denying it. Everyone acknowledges it, whether you're American or from any other country. Everyone acknowledges Simone Biles is the GOAT. I am mesmerized by the physical feats that she's able to accomplish watching gymnastics. It's one of those sports that's difficult for my tiny brain to comprehend, how one can get the human body to do some of the things that these gymnasts are doing. I think the male gymnasts are probably pound for pound some of the strongest humans on the planet, and the women gymnasts, incredible athletes. Simone Biles is getting over 12 feet in the air, where her head is touching 12 feet, 2 inches. I don't know how it happens. She's not on a trampoline. Blows my mind every time I watch her perform. My question is, where does she rank among American athletes all time? My mind immediately goes to a team sport athlete like a Michael Jordan when I think about some of the greatest of all time. That would be probably my GOAT of greatest American athletes ever. But that's in a team sport setting. Muhammad Ali, if you want to go individual sports. Ali's a name, especially with older people, is a name that will be mentioned as greatest American athlete of all time. Also an Olympic gold medalist, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was in a sport that was judged. I hear that knock against Simone Biles. I can't say someone's the greatest athlete if they're in a sport where a judge determines winners. Well, boxing, if you don't knock the person out, it's judged by people in the end, just like gymnastics. So you got to take one away from Ali there if you're going to take one away from Simone Biles. Babe Ruth, very older generation, would turn to him as maybe the greatest American athlete of all time. We could stick with the Olympics and go Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps had 28 overall medals, 23 of them gold, and you can see all of them in this photo right here.
Where's the Speedo really low?
So, yes, he does. Very long torso on Michael Phelps also. Hutton, I posed the question because I don't know that I have a strong answer on where exactly she ranks, but I'm going to go ahead and say it's somewhere in the top 5.
Yeah, it is.
When you look at her accomplishments, and I'd probably put Michael Phelps in the top 5. We almost need a separate category for Olympic athlete and greatest Olympic athletes of all time, and then greatest team sport athletes, then greatest individual sport athletes separate of international competition or the Olympics to make it a fair fight. But even if I put all of them in the same pot, they're all in the same stew, and I'm mixing that stew together, Simone Biles is coming out in the top 5.
I think Katie Ledecky's there too.
She's right there also as the most decorated female swimmer.
Yes, yeah. Phelps comes to mind. Obviously,
Phelps was the one that got this conversation going when he was racking up all the golds. Is he the greatest American athlete, period, of all time, when we saw his exploits?
Jesse Owens, let's go back a long time.
Yeah, there's
Jesse
another
Owens,
one. That's a great
Carl
one.
Lewis, Joyner Kersey.
People want to point to Jim Thorpe. If
Jim
you want to
Thorpe,
go
sure.
way back, that
But,
could do everything.
You know, every era, we're going to remember what we've seen, right? Yeah. And, you know, that the run that Phelps had puts him, to me, number one in my mind. But again, it's recency bias because of the Olympics going on currently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if not for what we know, Lance Armstrong would be mentioned in this.
Absolutely. And I think also, you know, trying to differentiate between them, and someone's going to say, oh, you know, a decathlete is the greatest athlete, or a basketball small forward is. I'm not looking I am looking at sheer athleticism and how difficult the sport is.
Longevity, dominance.
Dominance also, and this is not a knock at Michael Phelps. I watch what Simone Biles is able to accomplish in different gymnastics disciplines that requires very different muscle groups of the body that have to be so strong and so fine-tuned in the motions and everything. And Michael Phelps is swimming fast. Okay, now he's doing different strokes, but he's a fast swimmer, right? Simone Biles is going from the vault where she's going airborne and doing all this to a floor exercise where she's doing different things to, you know, uneven bars or whatever is next. It's all so different with each discipline. To win that all-around gold at the Olympics is so hard.
But
I just have the utmost respect for what it is she's able to do.
But the last time we were talking Simone Biles, she was quitting.
Yep.
Because of the twisties, I believe is what they called it.
Right.
The mental block that can cause gymnasts to lose track of where they are in the air. Again, likely. I mean, I'm not saying that didn't happen. But it also, you know, in the background of USA women's gymnastics, you know, they very corrosive, and that's putting it politely, I guess, what went on behind the scenes with all of that. I think that all factors in, too, with what she's still doing now.
I think if that was the end of her story,
I'd look at
and I'm not making light of it, but if the twisties and bowing out of the 2021 Olympics in Tokyo,
well, but it was also like
if that was the end, I don't think we'd be having this conversation.
Yeah.
But I think on the fact that she came back at 27, which is old for a gymnast, but came back at 27, and she even called it a redemption tour for her and that whole team, and they did it. You know, they won the team
and
gold. She won the all-around gold. They accomplished the biggest goals of her and that team. To come back and overcome that and do it and state that goal and accomplish it, it puts her right there to me in the top 5 all time, maybe top 3. And she may not be done. Both her and Katie Ledecky are talking about coming back to end at home in 2028 in Los Angeles and make that their final Olympics. We'll see. That's a long way away. We'll see if they're able to accomplish that and qualify and do all those things and train that hard for the next 4 years.
And it was
but
also,
they may not be finished.
May not be finished. We didn't know during the time of the twisties. Okay, next event, is she going to compete on Sunday? Is she going to do something next week for the team? It affected the team as much as it did her, you know, and wading through all that. But the redemption tour is, I mean, yes, in the eyes of how we're viewing her now, redeemed.
Yeah, and look, hit us up on social media. Tell us where you agree, disagree. I'm sure this will be clipped also, and you can have the discussion and debate amongst yourselves. The number one thing I've heard in response to this whole thing, Hutton, is she's awesome. Everyone acknowledges that responds to it, but says, I can't put anyone in a sport that is judged in the top 5. To
Well,
which I say then you got to take every fighter out, because if it goes to a decision, it's the winner's based on a judge's decision.
But
And I'm not going to do that. I'm not willing to do that.
Again, we've seen scandals even in other competition,
Boxing,
right? but
mixed martial arts.
Not
We've
even
seen
judge,
scandals
not even
everywhere.
judge, but I'm saying even when it's officiated, not
Yes.
judged. But
I mean, last night
Vegas,
we saw
Vegas certain casinos in Vegas won't take bets based on judged sports in the Olympics.
And I didn't see it live yesterday when it happened, but I'm watching in primetime like it's live. And Jordan Childs for the U.S. wins a bronze with a Romanian girl celebrating with her country's flag, thinking she won the bronze because the judges had to go back and evaluate the start value of her routine. And in evaluating it, it gave her just enough a bump to go into the bronze spot. And it was heartbreaking to see the Romanian girl just freeze as Jordan Childs and the Americans are celebrating, and she realizes, I didn't win a medal. And that was all she wanted to do, was win a medal. And so, yeah, I mean, I get some of that with the judge's ruling and all that, how it comes down to it. But
There's an
I
undeniability
can't
to it.
take away from Simone Biles.
Undeniability to it.